Good morning, everyone. I welcome you to the Thursday, October 17th, 2024 Public Works meeting. And with us, we have Councilmember Althauser, Councilmember Jefferson, and myself, Councilmember Swarthout. And so first on the agenda, we don't have any changes, I assume. I should probably ask that. No changes. Brandon, we haven't seen your face in such a long time. How are you? And you're bringing up the 93rd Avenue interchange study.
Yeah,
Well,
you're correct. I have not been here for a while. So good morning, everybody. Super glad to be here. So what I was going to say, a couple things up front, is former Assistant Director Mary Heather Ames was the person who was bringing this forward to y'all, and so I'm stepping in since she left us for an opportunity at the City of Pasco. She also left a mountain of other items for me to work on, so it's been tough trying to keep up. So if this presentation doesn't seem as polished as usual, it's mostly because there's just a lot of work to do. Uh, the only other thing I was going to mention is if I end up with a cough attack in the middle of this presentation, I'm coming off of a pretty bad sickness and I've got some lingering issues. So the good news for both of those is that this is going to be a pretty brief presentation. I can't gab or tuck your ears off as much as I normally would. I'm going to share my presentation here. Let's see, it's been so long, I got to figure out how to do that again. Here we go. And I trust everybody can see that. Okay. Um, so again, Brandon Hicks, I'm here to present the 93rd Avenue Interchange Study Consultant Agreement. Okay, so if you don't drive the interchange that often, you might be wondering, why are we even concerned here? It's at the south end of the city, so generally you would think that there's less traffic as you get into the more um, fringes where you start to get into rural areas. But myself being somebody who drives the interchange almost daily, I can say that it's a pretty big mess during certain times of the day. There's a lot of heavy truck traffic in the area, and then residential development in the area went pretty wild for a while there. So there's a bunch of new homes. And it's not just in the immediate vicinity of this interchange. There's been a lot of development on Old Highway 99, and a lot of those trips come to this interchange. On the east side of the interchange, daily traffic has increased from just over 9,000 trips in 2002 to 21,000 trips in 2022, which is in traffic engineering, that's a massive increase. It's a 130% increase in 20 years. And then the east side of the interchange, this would be the side where Pilot and Lincoln Creek Lumber are. That side is where the most significant issues exist today. But you'll see in some later slides, we are anticipating some increased traffic, mostly related to large development that's going to occur, or possible large development that's going to occur immediately adjacent to the interchange, mainly due to zoning and land ownership. See, I'm going to just jump forward real quick before I finish on this slide. I'm going to jump forward to a couple just to kind of give you some context for the scope and issues here. So as you can see in these two images here, there is, let's see, come on, laser pointer. So you can see in here, there's a lot of truck traffic here. And then this image as well, there's a lot of truck traffic. And although I say a lot, there's 21,000 trips a day in this segment here, which is a lot for us. In some areas in the county, it wouldn't be as much. Biggest issue here is that there's not a lot of storage for trucks, and there's a lot of left turn movements which conflict, create more capacity issues, sort of clog up the system, and then also create some safety issues. And so that would have been the component here about capacity and safety. Another part of safety is going to be multimodal facilities. On this slide here, I have green lines which indicate where sidewalks currently exist. And for a good portion of those, bicycle lanes exist in the same locations as the sidewalk. But you can see there's actually, for being where it is, there's a pretty good sidewalk network down there. And then the red segments of roadway show where there is no sidewalk on either side of the roadway. So those are sort of the major gaps in the network. And this interchange here is going to be the most critical because once that's completed, it's going to connect some of the residences that are off of Kimmy Street to some of the amenities that are near the interchange. So going back, so the main scope of the project is going to be the capacity, the safety, and the multimodal facilities that I was discussing. So on this slide, I'm presenting the recent and planned development that has occurred over the last few years that has sort of led to the concerns that we have here or the issues that we have here. Um, the recently developed properties are outlined in yellow, so those currently exist and they're currently contributing to the issues that are there. Those yellow highlighted areas represent about 1.5 million square feet in warehouses that have been developed, 23,000 square feet in commercial or retail, 75,000 square feet in government buildings, and that would be the Readiness Center, and then about 700 single-family homes that have been developed as well that are sending a fair amount of trips here. Now the areas highlighted in red, those are areas where there's planned development. And when I say planned development, it's not like it's going to happen down the future too long. Most of these, actually, there are development plans in for review at this moment. And they represent another 2.1 million square feet in warehouses. There's approximately 500 residential units. Most of those you don't actually see on the screen here, but their trips are going to be primarily coming to this interchange. And then the area that is outlined in the blue hashed line, that would be, let's bring this back. Wow. That's this area here. All of that land is actually either tribal trust or tribal ownership, and that would be the Confederated Tribes of the Chehalis Reservation. They acquired it specifically for the zoning and the location, and so we are anticipating that there's going to be some development, sort of expanding on what they have already developed, that being the Flying J. In addition to, there's a couple other commercial uses there. Here, I just want to highlight a few of the partners and stakeholders that are involved. I do want to point out, I put this together last minute right before this presentation, so I know that there's going to be several missing. But the top four are what I would consider to be the project partners. And then the bottom ones represent a portion of the business community that is going to be greatly interested in the results of this study. We do plan on a significant amount of coordination with the tribe. There's obviously some mutual interest in what happens here with the large amount of tribal property that's immediately adjacent to the interchange. I believe it's about 70 acres and it's all zoned for some fairly dense development. So just going to the agreement itself, we have selected SCJ Alliance as the most qualified consultant for the study. The scope of work includes analyzing safety and mobility issues, evaluation of the capacity at the interchange in all road segments within the immediate vicinity. The consultant would be completing what's called an intersection control evaluation, or an ICE. And those are required whenever you're doing construction that involves Department of Transportation, Washington State Department of Transportation interchange. And then the total cost of the study is approximately $258,960. And of that total, the consultant fee is approximately $222,600. The remaining is for city staff time. It takes quite a bit of effort to manage consultants, to review the products that they submit to us, to work on stakeholder engagement, and then to come back to y'all and city council with any results that come or updates. The study itself has received a fairly substantial federal grant. And when I say substantial, it's not a big dollar number, but it is a large portion of the overall cost for the project. And that grant it's STPG that was awarded by Thurston Regional Planning Council. Then I promised this was going to be a brief presentation since I'm catching up on it. So I do have the recommended action on the screen. I just wanted to point out though, before you do take action, in the attachment, the agreement attachment, it did not show the total on the cover page. It did show it in the exhibits to the agreement, and so I just want to clarify that the action that you are taking today for the consultant agreement, it is for a not to exceed amount of $222,597.49. And then with that, I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have.
I have a question, Brandon.
Yeah.
So this study is going to tell us if we should have a traffic circle or if we should put a stoplight there. Is that correct?
It's going to tell us all of the improvements that we should do within the limits of the study. So it's going to, in all likelihood, it's going to involve widening the interchange bridge. There likely would be some intersection control changes. You know, oftentimes you've seen lately that ends up leaning towards roundabouts, but we ultimately don't know. We're going to aim for whatever makes the most sense from a value engineering standpoint.
Okay, so my question is, since I'm new, can we at the city know by looking at it? Do we have to have a consultant? I mean, as an engineer, you probably know what's going on there. So educate me on that.
So, I mean, you do bring up, it's a good question. It's in a good point. So several of us here, including myself driving it quite a bit, do have a good understanding of what the issues are. And we have ideas of what the solutions might be. But a lot of what the consultant is working on is going to be required studies that have to be submitted to Washington State Department of Transportation, and some coordination with FHWA that has to occur in order for us to come up with any improvements here.
Yeah.
You know, they'll do some basic layouts so that we know when development comes up, what type of right-of-way we're going to need them to dedicate when they're going through their development proposals. There's quite a bit of information that really, you know, if we were to have staff do it, it would take up entire FTEs for thousands of hours, and we simply don't have the capacity.
I get it. All right. Thank you, Brandon.
You're welcome.
Brandon, is the reason why we have to do all these requirements with DOT because it's over the freeway and adjacent to the freeway? Is that why we have to go through special permitting and engineering processes for them?
Correct. Whenever we do any work on DOT facilities, especially on Interstate 5, we do have to go through these permitting and document requirements. And, you know, I should also mention that 93rd Avenue east of the interchange is actually State Route 121 as well. So it's a city street that's part of the state system. And the reason that is because of Miller-Sylvania State Park. Ultimately, the state is required to maintain the pavement going to the park, but we are responsible for all frontage, for all access control, things like that.
You'll learn something new every day.
Yeah.
And I thought this one too, when I first came on council, we were talking about putting that they'll be doing water on the overpass, that we'll be running a water line somehow on top of, along with that as well.
So, there's a good chance that if we widen the bridge, that we would run some water line across the bridge. In all likelihood, it would be dry.
Mhm.
By what I mean is that we would not connect it to our existing water system, and that's because in the Confederated Tribes of the Chehalis Reservation. So the tribe actually worked on getting water to the west side of I-5. They did it to the south. They went through private property, so it's
Okay.
south of the interchange. But we do currently have city water serving that side of the interchange.
Oh, okay, cool to know. Cool. Well, good. I wonder how quickly this will, after how quickly, when you got the roundabouts all done on, for Capitol, and that exit. So I wonder how long before we'll see this one actually be able to break ground. So,
It could be a ways out.
Mhm.
We have zero funding for construction at the
Mhm.
moment. This just covers a study. Our current focus is actually moving to the Tumwater Boulevard interchange.
Mhm.
We're going to be reconstructing that in phases, and we have an active design for the northbound on off-ramp right now. And we'll be constructing that within the next 2 years is my assumption. So
Yeah.
we're kind of just going one interchange
Yeah.
at a time in Tumwater.
Yeah, that's another one. So it got popular and we got busy. So, all
Yeah.
right. Well, do we have any other questions for Brandon then? All right. So we do have a recommended action before us to recommend the city council approve and authorize the mayor to sign the consultant agreement with Shea Car and Jewel Incorporated for the I-5 and SR 11-93rd Avenue Southeast Interchange Study Project.
So moved.
Well, soon we see some.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Brandon, thank you so much and feel better.
Just one more thing.
Okay, all right.
Would you propose this go as consent or consideration?
It should go as consent, I believe.
Okay.
On the next, we've got what, the November, I think it's on for the November meeting, so
All right. Well, thank you.
November 4th.
November 4th, yes, Monday, November 4th. Perfect. All right, thank you so much. All right, and now we're gonna move on to resolution number R 2024-017, the 2025 fee schedule. And take it away, Troy.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to present. Can you see my presentation yet?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So this, I'm Troy Niemeyer, Finance Director, and this is for the 2025 fee resolution. Presentation's not too long, and I'll just let you know up front, this will be in most ways a lot like last year, and in some ways a little different, and we're not going to ask you to take any action on this today. We'll go through some of the highlights in the proposed changes, and then we'll get to the comparison slides with our neighboring cities and talk about next steps. So for the background piece, as most of you know, this is an annual process. We do this every year. It really involves all city departments. Some more than others. It's pretty heavy for community development and for the utilities. And the city has kind of a longstanding practice of doing kind of smaller incremental increases each year rather than waiting a number of years and then having a very large increase. And I think that's a really solid practice. So we'll jump right into the highlights now. Table 1 only had one change, and that was an inspection fee for a business for a new location or change of use from 85 to 100. Table 2, just some minor updates for the most part, but the big ones there are the school district fees. School district impact fees. You might remember from last year we did not get those updated, and so we're on top of that this year, making sure we get those done. But with that, I will let you know too, if you looked at the proposed fee schedule change, I think I had the school district ones highlighted in red because they hadn't got them to us yet. And we just got the one from Tumwater late last week, so that will be added next time you see this. Olympia has not provided theirs to us yet. They're still in progress. So we'll make sure we get that in before we bring that back to you. Those are really important, obviously. Okay, table 3 is building and fire safety. Some updates to reflect the current cost of doing business, and then another similar to the first table, certificate of occupancy for a business going from 85 to 110. Table 4 is transportation engineering and utility connections. Again, some small fee increases, and the big highlight here are the connection charges, 8.5% increase for water, 4% for sewer. And these rates are built into the CFP for future construction. Table 5, public safety. You might remember the fire alarm fee. This is actually a fee for a third false alarm. So if a business has a false fire alarm, the first one doesn't cost anything. The second one, we charge them $25. The third one jumps up to $393. And this is just for false alarms, not for regulars. This fee and the amount of this fee is per the recommendation of the Washington Association of Fire Chiefs, or Washington State Association of Fire Chiefs. And then table 4 for recreation, we have youth baseball and youth basketball, both going up by $10. We're going to skip table 7 for a minute, and I wanted to spend some time highlighting a new table, table 8. So last year we added the Lifeline program. So Lifeline program is for low-income residents that qualify. They can get 50% off of their utilities. So it's a really great program. We added that to the fee schedule last year in table 7, but it's a big table, and we felt like it kind of got missed. And so actually Bonnie and Water Resources came up with the idea to make it its own table to highlight it better. And we thought that was a great idea. So that's included. And then just wanted to also point out, in addition to the Lifeline program, we still have our Tumwater Hardship program that's funded by community donations. And then there are also federal programs to help people out, like the LIHEAP program. Okay, so back to table 7 now. Lot is increasing their portion of sewer by 3%. Our proposed increases to utilities are 6% for water, 8% for stormwater, and 7% for sewer. And I know that might seem kind of high, but we'll give you some context here as we go. And this committee is familiar with Corollo, who or you're familiar at least with WRS, Water Resources and Sustainability, has been working with a company called Corollo for about a year now, working to put together a 10-year rate study. And so that'll take into account everything that the utilities do and their future needs and growth. And they've pulled me in a few times on that, and it's really thorough, and it's going to be a great tool for us going forward when it's done. They actually recommended quite a bit higher increases than we're proposing here. However, the work is not done yet, and so we didn't want to get ahead of ourselves and go with a high rate if we didn't need to. And so this is less than what they were recommending, and these increases would go to supporting additional staff for the utilities, some additional equipment, continued electrification of the fleet, of course, some long-term capital projects, and then urban forestry and a portion of the stormwater for the Deschutes estuary. And now we'll shift gears and we'll circle back again in a minute. So we're going to talk about the general fund for just a second. And, after the council retreat early this year, Lisa, while working with the management team, asked us, what does it take to run your department? And we've talked before about the non-rep salary adjustment, paying our non-represented folks what we need to. And we've also found that we really need more people to do the work that we're doing. And then, of course, space needs. We don't have any place to put more people. So that brings us to our financial toolbox. And I think you've all seen this one before, but the toolbox are basically the tools in our belt that we can use to decrease expenses or increase revenue. And they're kind of limited, but of course there's level of service changes, which none of us like to do, but that's always an option. If we can increase revenue sources, and so that would be new sources of revenue, like the Prop 1 money that we're getting for public safety. We can find efficiencies, and that's always great. However, we've been doing that for, I'd say, 20, 25 years now, and I would say the efficiency piece is pretty dried up. We could increase taxes and fees. Not a popular thing that we like to do, but it is definitely an option. And then one-time revenues like grant money, or the last 4 years, we've been really fortunate to have the stimulus money from the pandemic. But most of that's spent. There's a little bit remaining, but it's earmarked for things. And so that money is basically gone now. So part of this proposal, an overall budget proposal as well, would be to increase the utility tax on the Tumwater utilities. This would not include your Comcast, Puget Sound Energy, Pacific Disposal, or any of that, just the Tumwater utilities. And that would bring in about $600,000 a year to the general fund to help with some of those increasing costs. The cost to a single customer would be about $8 a month. And we'll give you some additional context here with our neighbors. Lacey is still at 6% like we are. Olympia has been at 12.5% for a little while now. I don't know when they changed, but I think ever since I've been here, they've been at 12.5%. And so now the big slide that I know everybody's been waiting for, the comparison to Lacey and Olympia for all of the rates. So for us, the water increase would be $2.30. Sewer on our portion of sewer would be $1.62. Lot's portion of the sewer would be $1.38. Storm would be $1.13, and the $8.08 if we increase the utility tax. For a total increase on a monthly bill, assuming 900 cubic feet of water, which is always what you use for the comparison, total increase would be $14.51. So an average bill would go up to $143.55. That is still just about $5 below where Olympia is at, and $7.65 below where Lacey is. And because of this proposal to increase the utility tax is why we're not asking for any action today. Typically, we would ask you to put this on consent at the next meeting, but we felt like this is something the whole council needs to be involved in, and so that's why no action today. And so now we will pause for questions for a minute.
Yes, sure. Thanks for this. So ours is still below Olympia and Lacey, right?
Yes, that's correct. We're $4.78 below Olympia, and we'll be $7.65 below Lacey.
Okay, thank you.
My only question was looking at the math. We're currently at 6% and we're proposing to go to 12%.
Yes.
But when we're looking at on this the chart, how does that factor in on this chart that we're looking at?
So the let's see, I don't know
6% at utility tax is 6%. So
that's the increase. If you can see my cursor, I'm not sure how to use the laser pointer like Brandon did. I got to learn that. So the current rate here, current utility tax at 6% is $7.30 a month. This is the increase right here. So it's a 6% increase to bring it up to 12. And then the new amount of the utility tax would be $15.38 a month.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
And these are for Olympia and Lacey, that where we have the 6% here. That's blank on theirs because they stated they're not raising their utility tax this year. And just for a little bit more additional context, I looked at AWC does a study every year. It's voluntary, so it doesn't get every city, but I looked at that yesterday, cities across the state, and it really ranges. There are a few that are lower. There's a lot at 6%, and there's a number that are quite a bit higher. I think it's either Vancouver or a town near Vancouver that's at 29 point something percent. And so it really varies across the state. But this is one lever that we can pull to increase revenues to help address our rising costs. As you know, we've got the 1% property tax cap, and so we're really limited there. And other things like a levy lid lift, we would need to go out for a public vote. This is a lever that we can pull that is only takes council action.
Troy, when was our last increase?
I don't know. I've been here for coming up on 4 years, and we haven't increased in that time.
Okay.
I'm guessing being at 6%, that used to be kind of the standard years ago. So my assumption is we've probably been at 6% for a really long time.
Okay, because we know costs are going up, as homeowners, just increases are just painful, but I just wanted, the public to know when our last increase was. So if you could find that out for me, I'll appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you.
Write myself a little note there.
So can I ask a question?
Of course.
So Lacey's utility tax is still gonna be $8. I mean, so we're sort of playing catch up with a lot of these. A lot of these, deferred maintenance is the wrong term, but we've been kind of waiting to do this for a long time. It sort of seems like Lacey is maybe also waiting to do that because some of their other ones are much more expensive. Like their sewer is much more expensive than ours, but they're also like trying to connect more people to sewer.
Yeah.
Right.
I believe so. Yes. Absolutely. I think we're trying to catch up, and yes, for the individual utilities, those rates are based on what they think they need to run the utility, whether that's wages of the staff that work in the utility, the increased cost of construction, the different connection fees, everything factors into the rates. And then the utility tax, that's more, there's more discretion on what we do with that. And currently we put a small percentage that goes to the general fund, some goes to the two CFP funds. So some is going to streets, some is going to the general government CFP. And then this proposal would have that additional whole 6% would be going to the general fund. I see Lisa. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Councilman.
For the budget that's being developed, that relies upon these increases to balance. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, yes.
Okay.
I see City Administrator Parks has her hand up.
I just wanted to take a quick opportunity to clarify, and I apologize if this is understood by you all, but if there's anybody in the public, water, sewer, and stormwater are what we call enterprise funds, proprietary funds. So the rates that we charge people for using the system are required to be used to support that system. We're not allowed to use the rate revenue outside of the needs of those individual funds. There are ways in which we can do interfund loans, but in that case, if we're using any of the money that comes in as a component of a utility rate, then we are required to pay that back if we borrow out that money outside of that particular fund. The utility tax that is applied to those rates is allowed to be used in the general fund. And it is a more predictable source of revenue compared to, for example, sales tax. If we strictly relied on growth and development of all those warehouses and those projects that Brandon identified and relied on sales tax, that's very dependent on whether or not those projects come to fruition. Whereas the utility tax is a more stable source of revenue that can help the general fund in terms of trying to help us with the structural deficit associated with only being able to charge a 1% property tax on growth for our general fund revenue.
I have a question, as we talk about taxes, because we know that we have certain segments who just can't afford it. You know, they've been in their houses forever. So will there be outreach on assistance to help them pay this increase?
I'm gonna jump in here, Troy, just a second, and the answer to that, Councilmember Jefferson, is absolutely yes.
Okay.
We recognize the challenges in our community. We already have some pretty decent programs that Troy covered before this slide for people who have trouble paying their utility bills. People are taking advantage of some of those programs as needed, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of getting the word out. And we also are committed to looking at, what are some programs that we might be missing? Because we do want to recognize and acknowledge that some people have a hard time, even with the $14.51 a month increase. We recognize that. At the same time, we can't not grow our rates to support the work that we're trying to do for that sole reason. We do have the authority to come up with programs to address the needs of those who have trouble making that. So we're going to try and do as much as possible, utilizing our existing programs, but then really taking a look at whether or not there are additional programs that we can implement to address those needs.
Understood. And you know what, City Administrator, it would be great if we can send that message out in our monthly utility bill. This way, everyone knows that we understand,
Yes.
these costs are going up. So just, a little website where they can go for assistance would be good. Because sometimes you send a message out one time and they might not necessarily see it. So I would like to see something like that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Thank you for that. And we do periodically put that out in the utility bills, probably 2 or 3 times a year. And our front counter staff are always on the lookout for folks that might qualify. But we're always looking for ways to do better. Right now, I believe the number is we have about 110 people on the Lifeline program. I think seems to me like it should be more than that. And so we're, if they qualify, they qualify, and they should take advantage of that. And so we really want that and encourage it. I think it is on our website, but we'll definitely send some more information out and put that in the utility bill. Just a quick shout out to Water Resources. Sometimes when they're out in the community, I know Alyssa before has offered, without even me asking her, she's going out to meet with a community group, and she's like, "Hey, can I tell them about the Lifeline program?" I'm like, "Oh yes, please, and thank you so much." And so it's a good partnership between Water Resources and Finance, trying to get the word out on that. But we are always looking to do better.
Troy, one more question. These numbers for these are the yearly amounts of taxes on top of what people pay for water. These are not monthly numbers of where people are getting, this is the amount of dollars you're spending just in tax. So if I get however many cubic feet of water, the average user, this is what the average user pays in taxes yearly. So if you're looking at $14 increase over 12 months, it's a little more than $1 per month in terms of a tax increase on average, correct?
No, this is monthly. So this would be, yeah. So this would be a total of $14.51 a month increase.
Got it. Okay.
Wish it was only
I was
that for
looking-
the year. That would be a really easy sell.
I was looking at the new table that you created for the Lifeline program, and just curious, I guess I need to do my homework, but to find out, get more information on what the level is for qualifying, because this, $14 or $15 could, that applies to everybody, no matter what income rate they are, what they are, it applies to everyone. And so, so I'm just curious, do we drop our threshold, or how do we adjust if we need to? Is that a number that we can adjust if we have more people that need assistance there? How do they qualify that? Because I know some people that apply for like tax relief with the county, they're poor, but they're not poor enough. So they're not eligible for some of these programs. And so I was just curious what that looks like for us, and what income level, and what, if we have any idea how many people that would qualify for that in our community.
Yeah, so for the Lifeline program, we use the same thresholds that the county does for the property tax assistance. So it is, you do have to be pretty low income, and we do understand there's folks that don't qualify for that. But it's still hard to make the bill sometimes. And so, so this $14.51 increase, if they are on the Lifeline program, it would be half of that, because everything is, each utility their bill gets cut in half, and then the tax is only applied on what they're paying. And so the utility tax would be cut in half for them also.
The only thing I would like to add to that, thank you, Troy, is that we can look, council member Swarthout, at options for potentially evaluating if we can increase, I don't know how to increase the level. We do have to be careful with regard to the constitutional provision in our state with regard to gift of public funds. I think that, Dan's going to raise his hand, so I'm not going to take his thunder, but I believe this is a component of part of the study. So I'm going to be quiet now and let Dan take over.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. That's also one of the things that we are looking at with this study, and so we're finishing up with the financials, looking at the capital projects in front of us, and the last part of that work is really going to be looking at the affordability of the rates, and if we exceed the thresholds and kind of a revised affordability formula, looking at what are some opportunities, programs that we might be able to implement, either in addition to or expand what we already do with the Lifeline program, things like that too. So that will be forthcoming.
Yeah, and the good news of that is anytime, if you are challenged about the constitutionality of your programs, at least we've got the good work that shows what we're basing our numbers on. So kudos to Dan and his team for taking on that particular study and getting that on the books. That's going to help us address this issue and justify what it is that we might do in terms of figuring out programs to assist those who have greater need in our community.
So Dan, I have another question then. So the Habitat project is already plumbed in, right? So they've already got their water, sewer, their connections done at this point over there. And so is that correct? I'm not sure if you know. And so if we had a new project like that come in, do they qualify for the Lifeline program? Would they get the rate charges for like the low income, or do we have any? I know it's a smaller project, but still, do we have like a benefit that for these kinds of projects that are built in Tumwater?
So I guess there's a couple of different ways that we do look at those and address those. So once in the development phase, we have discounts for the connection fees that we charge for properties that are providing for low income housing, things like that. And so as long as it qualifies, under that criteria, we can reduce those costs. On the and similarly on the Lifeline program, What I know finance has tried to work with in the past, whether it's mobile home communities or other low-income supported housing, where there is maybe like a singular unit, or even if there's multiple units, we provide that same level of service or level of discount incentive to those individual ratepayers. In the sense of where there's like maybe a mobile home park where they pay a large, where there's a single customer, so to speak, the owner of the mobile home park kind of thing. We've worked with them to determine the percentage of folks that would qualify for that program, and we renew those, periodically renew those understandings periodically. So that way, we're also discounting those bills appropriately for those developments, those properties.
Yeah, and I'm gonna add one more thing also. I think, the distinction there is that the connection fee is paid by the developer. So that's generally is paid by the developer. In that case, it's Habitat for Humanity, and we work with them on those, as Dan mentioned. The Lifeline program itself is based on the income of the user. So it's the person who's paying the fee that, and their conditions that would either qualify them or not qualify them for the Lifeline program. And Dan did a great job of explaining how we address those areas where we've got a single connection, but that serves multiple people, many of whom are likely in that lower income bracket.
Yeah, and just another point on the connection fees. They're also required, if they do take those incentives, required to file a deed restriction so that they will be providing that supported housing for, I believe it's a period of time, if not indefinitely. So we do make sure that happens. And again, on the consumer side, when we're renewing, we renew those rates periodically with the property owner if it's not the individual customer that we hold the account with.
Okay. Good to know. All right. I had one more question, but I can't remember now.
Well, if you think of it, just jump in. So next steps, again, informational for today. We will bring this back to the full council planned on November 4th, and the effective date will be January 1st, 2025. And here's my recommendation slide, but there's no recommendation. So stop sharing there. Oops, that didn't work. Now I stop sharing.
Yeah, it looked like on the slide that in our packet says consent, but it looks like the slide was changed to consideration. I was gonna say, like, this, I think we need to be open that this is like a sizable increase, particularly for the utility tax. Like, it's increasing 6 points. It's not increasing 6%, it's increasing 6 points. And that's, that the community will have feelings about that probably. It's, I think a necessary thing to do probably for the budget, but it should be on consideration so we can have like a pretty public discussion about it, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
I agree, Michael. Thank you. All right. So with that, looks like, do we have anything else on their agenda there? So we'll be taking that to consideration. Great. Sorry, trying to get my agenda back up again. All right, we've gotten to the end of our agenda.
Do we need to do?
Do we need to take an action on that? I'm sorry, I apologize.
If we want to recommend it, we would need to do a motion that constitutes.
Perfect.
I think,
I'm sorry.
unless Troy has some different information that he got from Karen, I think it is appropriate if the Public Works Committee wants to make a recommendation. But unless, Troy, did you get advice otherwise from the legal department?
No, I just on that last slide that I went through by really fast, I put a cross out on consent agenda and added considerations. So, but a motion is fine if we want to do that, however is appropriate.
Okay, I can read the motion in with the correction then. So, like the Public Works Committee would like to recommend to place resolution R 2024-0017, the 2025 fee schedule on the November 4th, 2024 City Council consideration calendar. So, and I think that's all we need.
So moved, Angela.
Did you say with a recommendation to approve? I did, the audio sort of cut out for me, so I didn't.
Well, do we need to do that? I mean, okay.
We don't have to ever do
Okay.
that in committee
Okay.
meetings, but we typically do.
Okay, with the recommendation to approve and authorize the mayor to sign.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
moved. So
I'll
moved.
second.
Thank you, Michael. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, so we will be seeing this on the consideration schedule for our November 4th meeting. All right. Now I get back to my agenda here. So with that, I do believe we have come to the end of our agenda. So if there's not anything else that we need to discuss today, then I will call the Thursday, October 17th, 2024 Public Works meeting adjourned. Everyone have a super good day, and Brandon feel better. So.